peace and quiet of our vihara rather than the hustle and bustle in KL. So when I come for something like for tomorrow, there's a meeting. So I take the opportunity to have a Q&A tonight. So I hope you all have questions, because nowadays the Dhamma is very confused. And especially I think Venerable Saranankara has noticed over the last 1 year or so the drift away from the true Dhamma. And that's why Venerable Saranankara has initiated this idea of having a Theravada council. That's why I'm here for the meeting tomorrow. And I've studied the Dhamma for many, many years. You could say from 1976 until now. And I try to study all aspects of the Dhamma. And I find there's a lot of contradiction between the different schools of Buddhism. And not only within the schools, different schools of Buddhism, even within each school of Buddhism, there are contradictions. But unfortunately, not many monks or lay people have the knowledge to see through the contradictions, or have the courage to speak out. In the Vinaya books, the Buddha said that the sasana, the Buddhist religion of each Buddha is different. The life of the sasana is different. If the Buddha, that means the Sammasambuddha, teaches a lot of suttas and Vinaya, then the sasana will last longer. There are some Buddhas who teach less suttas and Vinaya, so the sasana lasts shorter. And it is also stated in the Vinaya books that after the Sammasambuddha has passed into Parinibbana, the sasana, the Dhamma wheel, is turned by the Sangha of monks. And if the Sangha of monks remain faithful to the original teachings of the Buddha said there will still be Arahants and Aryans in the world. But if we stray away from the original teachings of the Buddha, there will no more be Aryans in the world. So the Buddha gave a warning. In fact, the Buddha gave many warnings. The Buddha said, take the sutta, and he said, take the Dhamma and the Vinaya that I have taught to be your teacher after I am gone. Now there is a bit of controversy over what is the Dhamma. But this is clarified by the Buddha in the Anguttara Nikaya, I think 4.180, where the Buddha said, if any monk says that the Buddha taught in such and such a way, the Buddha said, you should not accept or reject the teachings. Instead, you should compare it with the suttas, that means the original suttas, and the Vinaya. If it conforms to the suttas and the Vinaya, then you can take it to be the words of the Buddha, to be the teachings of the Buddha. But if it contradicts the suttas and the Vinaya, the Buddha said, it is not the Buddha's teachings, and you can reject it. So from here you can see quite clearly, when the Buddha says Dhamma Vinaya, actually it means Sutta Vinaya. And nowadays, because there have been a lot of excavations, archaeological excavations in India. We have a fairly good knowledge of what is the origin of Buddha's teachings. There is a very good book on the history of Buddhism by Professor Akira Hirakawa. And in that book, he says that actually he says what the Buddha has already said. The Buddha said that the true Dhamma will last for 500 years, meaning that it will not be contaminated for 500 years after the Buddha's passing away. And the Buddha said that after 500 years it will be contaminated. So during these 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, we had an emperor in India called Asoka. He was so devoted to the Buddha's teachings that he made the sculptors sculpt on these stone pillars, what we call Asokan pillars or Asokan edicts. And now that they excavate these stone pillars, they know that during the Emperor Asoka's time, the Dhamma and the Vinaya that the Buddha taught consisted of 5 Nikayas for the suttas. The Dhamma consisted of only 5 Nikayas. The Digha, Majjhima, Sangyutta, Anguttara, and Khuddaka Nikaya. And as far as the Vinaya books are concerned, we have them as we have them today, the 6 books of the Vinaya. So that is the original teachings of the Buddha. And this Professor Akira Hirakawa is a very knowledgeable professor, very famous professor from Tokyo University. And he has studied both the Mahayana tradition and the Theravada tradition. And he confirms that the pure teachings of the Buddha were from Emperor Asoka's time. And he says up to today, there has not been so much adulteration. We cannot deny that there is some, maybe 5% or what. But these books in the 5 Nikayas are as close as you can get to the original Buddha's teachings. So the Buddha also warned in the Sangyutta Nikaya, I think 20.7, the Buddha said in the future, the monks will not want to listen to the original teachings of the Buddha, which deal with emptiness, deal with liberation. Instead, they want to follow the words of disciples, meaning later monks, later books. And the Buddha said, because of that, because of not being loyal to the original suttas and learning and memorizing the original suttas, the Buddha said the suttas will disappear. So we are the heirs of the Buddha, heirs of the Buddha Sasana, and it is our duty to propagate this Dhamma of the Buddha as pure as we can, so that there will still be Aryans in the world. It is our burden to carry the banner of the Arahants. So it is our duty to keep as pure as possible the Buddha's teaching. So okay, I hope you all have questions to discuss. Please don't expect me to do all the talking. Yeah. Say again. Monk donate money. Okay. In the Vinaya, a monk cannot possess money, cannot possess property. Okay. But if, say for example, somebody gives some funds for the monk's use, then he can use it as he sees fit. But basically, money given for a monk's use is kept with the kapya, and is called the kapya fund. So basically, it is for requisites of the necessities of life. And if the monk does not need it, it would be better if he can give it to some other monk's fund. Okay. But if he thinks there is a worthy cause, say like some child has a heart problem and needs money for operation, if he wants to donate it to that place for that purpose, I think you can't say that it is against the Vinaya, although it's not as good as giving to another monk's fund. But if he feels that he wants to do some charity, it's up to him. But he cannot consider the money to be his at any one time. Is that satisfactory? Oh. That's not good. It's not good for a monk to be seen doing that. In the Vinaya books, during the Buddha's days, there was an incident where, during the Buddha's time, the only offering is basically that they receive food, robes, such similar things. So sometimes they get too much food, so they can't finish the food. If they don't give it away, it will rot. So the certain monk gave it to the external ascetics, the wanderers. And then they criticized him, and the external ascetics said that the Sakyan sons, the Buddha's disciples, behave like rich laymen, giving out things. So after that, the Buddha made a rule that monks should not give directly to these people, but to like a layman. So like sometimes, unless it is, sometimes if a monk wants to barter something, want to exchange something, say maybe the robe doesn't fit him, he wants to exchange it with another monk whose robe fits. So it is what is called a saha dhammika, of the same Dhamma, same tradition, they can exchange. But if with somebody from another sect, a monk should not barter directly, but through a kapya, a layman. There are certain things that lay people can do, but it's not very nice for a monk to be seen doing that, or a nun. Sometimes if a monk or a nun doesn't know the Vinaya, which is very fundamental for a monastic, then he or she can act in a way which is really doesn't look well at all. Like for example, one day we went on alms round in Bido, and we saw two nuns at a van there, and the van had durians. So we thought the two nuns were buying durians. So I asked the lay woman who was accompanying us, and the lay woman said, the two nuns are selling durians. So, it's really, really off.
Reverend, if one has doubt in rebirth, so I was searching to find how rebirth can be realized, and I come across a book that says that through psychic power, practicing the jhanas up to the 5th jhana, it's called Puban Vasanusatinana, is the power to remember the past lives of oneself and others. With regards to this knowledge, the Buddha's power is limitless, others are limited, and only one who has gained the 5th jhana can develop the 5 kinds of supernormal powers. Am I right? Is it true that this is one way maybe to know or how to resolve this doubt on rebirth?
Firstly, it's not the 5th jhana, it's 4 jhanas, 4 rupa jhanas. So what is your question?
The question is, let's say for example, if I have doubt about rebirth, and I just don't know how to bypass this doubt, so I don't know what to do. I started to read. First of all, I'd like to know how to do it. Second of all, I asked to know, is this one of the ways that can be done through these supernormal powers?
Yes, but it is a way that is beyond most people. The Buddha said that if we don't know something, we should ask, we should investigate, we should find out. If you don't do that, you won't be very intelligent this life or future life. So there are certain books that tell of the experience of other people, and a lot of things we can learn from other people's experience. So for example, there is a book called Rebirth. Is it Agaton Baptist or the other one, Anagarika, the Englishman? If you go to Mahavihara, the bookshop, they have this book on rebirth. And there is another book, 20 Cases Suggestive of Rebirth, by Professor, what's his name? Ian something? Ian Stevenson. And there are also, if you go into the internet, because some people have downloaded for us, there was actually on Australian TV many years ago, somebody downloaded for us, where one doctor made an experiment. He asked for volunteers, and he hypnotized them. And after hypnotizing them, asked them to talk about their previous life. And they did. Different people talk about different lives. So there was one lady in Australia, she had never been to France. And she said in a previous life, she was a princess in France. And this doctor asked her where was the place where she stayed, what was her name, what year and all that she could remember. So they took down all the details. And after that, they went to France, went to that particular place and checked and found that there was a grave of somebody maybe 200 or 300 years ago. That name was there. They checked the church records, it was there. So they brought her back. This was only one of, I think, 4 cases they showed. So they brought her back to that place. And when they went near that place, they blindfolded her. blindfolded her. Then when they went nearer, they took off the blindfold. And then she looked around, and slowly she remembered. She said, formerly the road was not here, the road was going this way, the river was here and all that. And then they asked her to show the way, and she showed them the way, go here and go there. Then they came to an old palace, old palace. And when she went inside the palace and she saw, she wept and wept and wept uncontrollably. But this present life has nothing to do with that palace, nothing to do with that life. But she couldn't understand why, and she just wept and wept. It's like some people, when you come into the Dhamma, you listen to the Dhamma, or you read the suttas, you don't know why this emotion wells up in you. Your tears come down. Something to do with the previous life. So, if you investigate this way, you'll find that there are people like that. Even now, there are doctors. One doctor told me he goes for a hypnotism course. You can learn hypnotism and you can remember. You have to pay for it. And you can remember your past life. There are several people who have said that they went for hypnotism and they remembered their past lives, came out in the papers.
But I think, Reverend, what I believe is that in the practice of Buddhism, we always say that Buddhism is more of a religion where we have to experience the thing that is here and now, and all by ourselves, each one of us. So even realizing Nibbana is also one by ourselves, here and now. Even non-self, all Nama and Rupa. So if the whole Dhamma has to be experienced by each one of us individual here and now, how do we experience rebirth here and now?
If you want to experience it yourself, then you have to attain the fourth jhana. You see, before you can even walk this spiritual path, there are certain things you have to accept. If you don't accept certain things, that there is, for example, a way out of samsara called the Noble Eightfold Path. If you don't believe that it works, why do you want to practice it? You must have some faith first that it works. So, in the same way, like the law of karma vipaka, we don't see that if we kill somebody, we'll end up in hell. And some people refuse to believe that, and they are not afraid of killing somebody. So the Buddha says in the suttas, in that case, if there is such a law where you kill somebody, you'll end up in hell, and you ignore that law, and you kill. If there is no such law, fine. But if there is such a law, you are headed for hell, right? On the other hand, if you, after listening that there is such a thing as going to hell, then you say, I better not kill somebody. So you are doubly safe. Even if there's no law, you don't go to hell. And if there is a law, you won't fall into hell, right? So it is safer to believe, right? So in the case of rebirth, in the same way, some people refuse to believe, and this is called wrong view. Wrong view, worldly wrong view, not believing that there is a law of karma vipaka. As you sow, so shall you reap. Not believing that there are planes of rebirth, not believing that there are Arahants on the spiritual path. So certain things like this, it is safer to believe. You don't lose much. On the other hand, if you don't believe, you are taking a big risk.